Let's talk a bunch of different topics.
How'd her career get there?
This is a podcast with Lauren Asghari.
Hey, everybody. Thank you for listening. Hit that like button, leave a positive comment, or hit subscribe to get alerted when new episodes drop. All of this will help keep the project going. Thank you for your support and enjoy the episode. This is the Lauren Asghari podcast, How'd Her Career Get There? And my guest today is Katie Turner. Katie is the founder, president, leader of Kate Turner Marketing Consultancy. She's also a member of the Business Women's Network and soon will be joining as a board member for the ARC of Howard County. So welcome, Katie.
Thanks for having me.
Very excited to get into this. Marketing, I feel like, is just a hot topic in general. So let's start with an overview. Tell our listeners just a little bit about what your business does.
Yeah. So I focus specifically on positioning and messaging strategy for smaller, typically founder-led B2B services firms. So professional services, small agencies, consultants, those kinds of businesses. And what I do is really help with, you could call it brand strategy. It's very focused on, how they're positioned, how their audience perceives them, and how they amplify the perception that they want so that they can attract more of the kinds of clients that they want to be working with. So it's really about, the positioning and then the messaging and the content that supports that.
So we're going to circle back in the conversation to get more into that, because I know that our listeners just even like some tips or tricks or get things I'm sure they'd be interested in. But before we do that, let's focus on you and how one gets to where you are.
Yeah.
So give it an overview, if you will, just kind of getting in our time machines, going back, just basic information. Where are you from? What were you like as a kid? Only child?
Yeah. Oh, you want to go way back. Okay. Yeah. So I was born, I grew up in Harford County, Maryland, in Fallston, if anybody knows where that is. I have one sister. She is 2.5 years younger than me. We are very close. She's my best friend. After that, I went to college. I majored in English literature. And then I went on to get a master's degree in English literature, thinking that I was going to be a teacher or something, or a college professor or whatever. I didn't really know. I decided sort of halfway through my master's program that I did not want to be a teacher. So after I graduated, I got a job. I was working for a publishing company doing production editing, which was not my long-term career choice. But after a few years of doing that, I got a job. My first marketing job actually was with the American Red Cross Blood Services in Baltimore. It was amazing working for that organization. And I kind of jumped in feet first doing marketing. Hadn't really done it before. I mean, obviously I know how to tell stories. I know how to communicate. So that was a big foundational part of marketing, is communication and storytelling. That I hadn't really had any formal education or experience in marketing as a discipline. So I learned a lot in my first year there. And then immediately, my first year kind of came to an end and my boss left the organization. And all of a sudden I was like acting director of marketing. That, talk about feet to the fire there. I was making decisions I had no business making. I was, learning everything on the fly. And it was very I had to just trust my instincts. And I had to sort of lean on my understanding of people and how people think and how they respond to words and messaging and understanding. And that was sort of the goal. So from there, I spent about 6.5 or 7 years working with the Red Cross. I left there. I worked for another nonprofit, the National Aquarium, which is based in Baltimore. Great experience there. I was a creative services director. Spent about a little less than a year there because my son was born shortly after, and I took just a few months off, a little bit of time off, about 6 months off for that. And then when I went back, I got a job at Howard Community College based in Columbia, Maryland. And I loved working in higher education. I mean, that was amazing. I spent about 8 years there. I had one of the most incredible teams of people that I've ever worked with in marketing and communications. And it was just so nice to be surrounded by really smart people all the time. But when the pandemic hit, it just kind of felt like it was the right time to, I think like a lot of people, like I started to reevaluate, like, okay, is this, maybe it's time to take a little bit of a pivot. And so I left the college and I worked for another sort of mission-driven, purpose-built organization. They were a healthcare company and they were focused on obesity and helping people get healthy who were living with obesity. I worked there for a year and a half, 2 years. And I was, at the time I left, I was a VP of marketing. It was great, completely different than, anything I had experienced before. Healthcare is an incredibly complex business, as I'm sure you can imagine. I had reached a point though where I felt like I was just ready to do this on my own. I had always had in the back of my head, I want to do consulting. I want to work for myself. I want to build something that is mine. There were a lot of reasons why the timing just felt right. I mean, it was the end of a year. It was the end of 2022. Which is always like a nice break of time. Plus my son had, he was about 10 years old, so he didn't require the constant, attention and hovering that you need to, it was just, he was a little bit more independent. So, there were just some other factors that were playing into that. So I made the decision to go out on my own and start Kate Turner Marketing. No idea what I was getting myself into. I mean, working in a corporate or an in-house role is entirely different than doing it for yourself. And I think I did not realize how different it would be. I had some sense, but it's sort of like having a baby. Everybody tells you like, oh, like it's going to be this, it's going to be that. You never know how it is until you actually experience it.
What were some of those things? What were some of those things that you were like, wow, couldn't have been prepared for that?
Yeah. I mean, I think that just the amount of work that you do that has nothing to do with the work that you want to be doing, right? Like all of the administrative sort of, all the business development stuff, like I knew that was going to be a big thing. And, business development and sales are not really my area. So I had to do a lot of learning there. I think there's just also a lot of like, planning for yourself and like managing all your time and doing your bookkeeping and figuring out how to like take care of accounting issues or pay yourself or pay vendors who work for you or find a freelancer who can support you in some way. Like there's just all of these things that, come up in business. And then I think the emotional like stress, like you work for a job, right? You work for a company. It can be incredibly stressful. But at the end of the day, it's like you're not carrying the weight of all of that in yourself, whereas when you start your own business, you are the person and you have to carry it all. So, the yes is like, yes, I want to work with you, like emotional high. The no, we're not, now's not the right time. We're declining this proposal, emotional low. Like, and I don't think that I was really prepared for how invested I would feel in some of that. And, you get over it. I mean, you sort of start to learn how to like ride the waves and roll with it a bit more. But it's like that first year or so really hard. It's still hard.
Yeah,
But I think figuring all that out in the beginning was just like, whoa, what have I done?
Yeah, I feel like you articulated that really well. Like, I think that's a thing that definitely most people that start their own businesses feel. And I feel like, yes, summed it up very well. When you were younger, like, what were some of the traits? What were some of your traits? I'll start there.
Well, I am a stereotypical eldest daughter and a stereotypical like stubborn Taurus. Oh, people have always said like, I have been called bossy. I have been called gosh, what are some
Other
nicer
B
ways to
words.
put some of the things that I've been called? I'm very type A, I like to be in control of a lot of things. And I think that have always been the kind of person who steps into a room and if somebody else is not in charge, then I'm in charge. Right.
Mhm.
So, because somebody needs to be the leader and like, if nobody else is going to step up and do it, then it's going to be me. And if the person who's doing it, I think is doing it wrong, then I'm going to take over and, re-steer the ship. So that can be a good quality and a bad quality. And I've managed the consequences in both directions. But I think I've always had sort of just like that leadership capability and that sort of very driven, self-directed, problem solving. I'm going to figure this out and nobody is going to tell me that I can't do it. My husband and I joke all the time. He's like, the fastest way to motivate me to get to do something is to tell me that I can't do it. Because then I'm just like, I'll prove you wrong,
Right.
And I think that I have always been like that.
And what would you say if you're looking back at and maybe you got them from different people, but what would be like 2 traits from your childhood and who'd you get them from that you think have carried you through today?
Yeah. I think, so my father was an entrepreneur. He had his own business, doing mechanical contracting, heating, air conditioning, that kind of stuff, from, for as long as I can remember. He started his business before I was born. So he's always owned his own business. So I think I've always looked at that as like, that's what people do. That's what grown-ups do. They have businesses. And my mom has always been very outspoken, like in the sense of like, she's not going to hold back. She's going to tell you how she feels. She's going to kind of take control of a situation. She's incredibly outgoing, super like helpful, wants to be involved. And like, I didn't get so much of that because I'm much more of an introvert than she is. But I definitely think some of the ability to like read people and the ability to sort of understand how to navigate like complex social dynamics or political dynamics within a company or whatever. I think some of that I get from my mom because she has a very good understanding of how people work and how to navigate those kinds of situations. And then my dad was probably the inspiration always at the deepest levels of like, well, grown-ups start businesses. And so that's what I have to do.
With you mentioned earlier that you're very close with your sister. So as a mom of 2 daughters, my husband and I have 2 girls. What's the secret sauce in that? Like, what is it about either the way that you grew up or the dynamic with your sister? Was it always like that? Like when you guys were younger? Just talk a little bit about
I
that
think we've always
relationship.
been close, but like, I don't know. I don't know that my parents did anything special to necessarily make that happen. We get along well. Of course, we're about 2.5 years apart. When we were younger, we fought like cats and dogs. We absolutely had screaming, hair pulling type fights with each other. But as we grew up and got older, I think really starting probably when we were both in college and then after as adults, like, we just became closer and closer. And I don't know that there's anything that can really replace a sister, in your life. So, we've just always had that relationship. I don't know that there's anything you can do to encourage it. It's either going to be that way or it's not. And hopefully it will be. But most of the other people I know who have sisters, they're all close. So.
Yeah, nice. How do you think in the span of your career, what truths remain about marketing and which ones have really evolved and changed?
Oh my gosh. Okay. So marketing, I feel like, is one of the most, everybody has a perception of what they think marketing is. And they're probably all wrong and they're probably all right at the same time, because marketing is a lot of things. Marketing is advertising. Marketing is, social media, your website, your, direct mail, whatever, your cold outreach emails, whatever. It's all those things. But it's also really about how you show up as a company, how at the root of it, it's like, how do you go to market, right? Like, how do you strategically position yourself as a company, what you're offering to who, how you do it, how you're different, how do you make, all those decisions that get made. I think that is at the real core of what marketing is. And that is never going to change. The tactics of how you do it, whether you, have SEO or you put a billboard out or you, advertise on the side of a bus, like all of these things have changed over the years. Print ads went and got replaced by digital ads, and digital's getting, taken over by AI now. Like there's just all these things that constantly happen. But if you focus too much on the mechanism of, how you do this, like, oh my gosh, we need to be on this particular social media channel, or we need to be writing more blogs, or we need to be having a better website or whatever, you're going to lose what really matters. And that the core of it is, are you offering something that you have an audience that wants to buy, right? So you have to have a very deep understanding of who your ideal customers are. You have to understand how they see things, and what they really need and want, and what motivates them and what triggers them to make decisions and make purchases, and who all's involved in that. I mean, it's very like contextual within their specific situation, and you have to have a very clear understanding of that. And then you have to really understand what you're offering and how it fits into that very complex dynamic of their life. And if you can match those two things together, then everything else is going to flow from there. All of the other marketing stuff is going to, the decisions and the understanding of how you're going to do that gets so much easier. But I think when people say, oh, my marketing is not working, I mean, if I dig in and really, try to uncover what's going on, very rarely is it just like a superficial, like, oh, well, you should be on, this channel instead of that channel. It's always some kind of more fundamental misalignment between their own understanding of their business and their audience's understanding of what they're doing or what their needs are.
Do most of your clients come to you with that message of, I'm spending money and I'm not getting return on it, or I'm spending money and it's not working? Or do most of them come with you? Because I know you mentioned, small businesses, B2B focused, I think is what you said earlier.
Yep.
Or do most of them come to you with, I'm not doing anything, right? I started my business and now we're growing and now I feel like I should put some money into marketing. Like, where are they in the chain?
Yeah, most of the companies that I'm working with, they have been doing the business for a while, and there is some kind of like inflection point that's happening. Maybe they have growth. They've been at a plateau for a while and they have big growth targets that they need to hit, or they have realized that the business has sort of evolved and changed from what they started out doing, because, you're doing more of it, you're doing more reps, you're meeting with more clients, you're having more, selling more stuff. And you start to realize that like your offer and the way that you deliver stuff has to change. And so you do that, but then all of the other stuff that surrounds that, your marketing messaging and everything else, doesn't really keep up as well, as fast as the business evolves. So, there's usually some sort of like transition or like whatever. I like to say that, they reach a point where the credibility and the legitimacy that they need to have as a business to be able to be competing in the space that they want to be competing in does not match the image that they're putting out into the world. So they need to realign those things. They need to sound like the business that they want to be. And that's what I help them fix. So how they describe that, the symptoms show up in a lot of different ways. I mean, it could be that like, we're all of the referrals that we get are not a good fit anymore. We get people recommended to us and they're just not the kind of people that we want to be working with. Or it's feast or famine. We get a ton of, referrals or prospects coming in and then none. And we can't figure out why it's not, more steady. the pipeline isn't more steady. They could directly recognize that they are trying to compete in a different space, or that their business has changed and their marketing hasn't kept up. And some of them are just like, just trying to figure out, like, I don't even know what to do.
Mhm.
I don't know what to do with marketing. I don't know where to start, or all of the things I've tried are not working and I don't know why.
Mhm.
Yeah.
What in your current and you can answer this however you want to answer it, whether it's in your current job or in the industry. What's like the best part of your job, and then what's kind of the underbelly or the part that like nobody really talks about? And you might have touched on it a little bit earlier with the entrepreneurial side about like, oh my gosh, all this other stuff beyond this marketing. But if we set that on the shelf for now, what are other things that come to mind as like, this part's amazing about what I do, and this part is like the hard part that nobody, the dirty secret that nobody in the industry talks about?
Yeah. I mean, I think in my work, it's always, the best part is really like seeing founders or business owners really embrace the work and invest themselves in it, and then see the return on it. I think the hard part sometimes is that, I sometimes have to be the one that tells them, like, you've got what you have created here does not suit the audience that you're trying to reach. And so you have got to make some really big adjustments in either how you are delivering this service or packaging this offer in order for it to make sense for this audience, or we have to go after a different kind of audience who is a better fit for what this is. It's sort of like, sometimes it feels like telling somebody that their baby is ugly. And, that's not what I want. That's not what I'm trying to do. Like, my goal is to help them as a business be successful. Like, I want you to make money. I want you to sell this thing or have this service and have a steady pipeline of new business coming in. But, sometimes that requires them to have to make very difficult decisions. And, you hope that when people hire a consultant, especially somebody who does the kind of work that I do, that they're willing to hear that, that they're willing to make some of those hard decisions, because they know that what they've been doing has not been working, and they need that outside perspective to tell them, like, okay, this is where things are potentially going wrong. But, it's still not, sometimes it's not the easiest conversation. Sometimes people are not as open to it as they think they would be.
Mm-hmm. How do you look at, or do you get this? I feel like a thing in marketing that, and I have my own perspective on it. I don't look like, the term ROI when it comes to marketing feels such a, in some ways, yes, data and direct, and in other ways abstract. And you can put something out that resonates with somebody that gets you business 6 months from now or a year from now that you don't even realize or know that they saw sometimes. So, but what's your perspective on that? Like, when companies, especially, small businesses, right? They're looking where to invest their dollars. They're probably crunching the numbers a bit more. How do you think about ROI when it comes to marketing services?
Yeah, I mean, I think
And
ROI,
return on investment. Sorry, just to clarify for the audience, ROI, return on investment.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I mean, I think that sometimes too much focus on that can actually be a blind spot for small businesses. A lot of them will say, like, I just need more leads, right? That's the biggest thing, every business wants more leads. But if your marketing strategy is not totally locked up, and you're not telling the right story, then it does not matter how much work you do to drive leads into the pipeline. It's not going to translate at the end of the day to real business growth, because you're either going to spend a lot of time spinning your wheels attracting the wrong kind of leads, the wrong kind of business, or whatever you put out there just isn't going to work, period. Right. So I think that and yes, like in some ways, like, the ability to measure marketing, which really started, I think with with digital marketing, when people could run ads and see how many clicks they got, and, and really track that conversion path. It's been great. It proves that marketing works. It gives people a lot of visibility into what is effective or not, but it does not replace strategy. The thing that makes the ROI happen is the strategy that underpins all of it. Your strategy has to be right. Then you can start tweaking tactics and start, adjusting and optimizing for better ROI on the specific tactical investments that you're making. But if you start with, I just want more leads and I need like somebody who's going to send me a report every month that says I got this many clicks or I got this many calls or we set up this many meetings, that's like running through quicksand, trying to, really grow your business that way. The easier way, the harder way is to spend the time to get the strategy and the positioning and the messaging right, and then
amplify
the
it.
Tactics.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's a bit of a double-edged sword, I would say.
What for you, if you look back in your career, do you remember a specific time and and if so, what were the circumstances where you did something and you were like, oh, lesson learned, I'll never do that again, or lesson learned, that worked, I will hold that lesson with me throughout other parts of my career? Any distinct moments like that come to mind?
I mean, I'm sure, I know that there have been a lot of moments like that where things just did not work. I'm trying to think of a specific example.
And not necessarily like in marketing, like that, this tactic didn't work, but just even for like a professional, like the lens I'm looking through when I ask that question is like somebody who's, maybe earlier in their, or any point in their career. But, I feel like we all we make mistakes, obviously, right? That's part of growth. Do you recall like a mistake that you made that you were like, okay, lesson learned on that, and I can carry that with me?
Yeah, I mean, I think recently with me, like over the past few years of sort of building my own consultancy practices and stuff, I think a big mistake is comparing yourself to other people and trying to mimic what they're doing, and it's a learning thing, right? Like you want to learn from other people, you want to learn, you're eager to be successful and so you think that like, well, if I just do what this person does, that'll work. But I found that has not that's not been the way that has been successful for me. And it often leads to much more frustration because sometimes you feel like you're trying to fit a model that maybe doesn't fit you or doesn't fit your product or doesn't fit your customers or whatever. And, I've spent wasted time trying to be like everybody else. And then, finally coming to the realization that I don't have to play the same game that all of these other people are playing. Like, I don't have to do that. Like, I can build the business that I want with the things based on the things that I believe in and the experiences and knowledge that I have. And I don't have to shape that to fit what I think is going to sell faster or what, matches what like this other guy is doing, because I'm not building that business. I'm building my business. So, and also it can just be so like disheartening sometimes. Like if you've ever heard the phrase like comparison is the enemy of joy, like, sometimes you look and you see like people who are, so successful and they're on LinkedIn and they're posting about all of their like, oh, we just, had a record breaking month or whatever. And you're sitting there kind of like, oh my God, like I'm just trying to, close like a few deals or whatever. And it can be very disheartening if you spend too much time in that space. So I think that, generally the biggest mistake is to try to play somebody else's game. You got to play your game.
Mm-hmm. I love that. So true. So true. What, and maybe that's it, or maybe it's something else, but I want to give you the floor to offer some advice or guidance. What advice would you have given your younger self, if it's different than that? Maybe it's the same, by the way, but otherwise you're early in your career. Looking back, if you were, if young Katie comes to you and says, hey, give me a tip, what would you tell her?
Yeah, I mean, I think that you make your own luck in business and in your career. And if you are going to sit back and wait for somebody to tap you, you're going to be sitting for a long time. You've really got to grab the opportunities, raise your hand, be the one who says, I want to take on that project. I want to lead this group. I want to learn that new skill or whatever. You have to just take those opportunities. And sometimes they'll work out great and sometimes they won't. But you're not going to be sitting around waiting for somebody else to direct your own career for you. You have to set your own path. And you do that by, reaching out and grabbing it.
Mhm.
I think that is the thing. I mean, you have to be willing to kind of take some of those risks career wise. And I've seen a lot of people, and I think especially women, who they sit back a little bit and they're like, well, like I'll get the promotion if they think I'm good enough.
Mhm.
And I'll get selected to lead that group if they feel like and it's like, well, if they feel, who's they, like step up, say you want to do it, raise your hand. Like, okay, maybe they say no because maybe there's a reason, but every time I have gone after like a promotion or a new position or something like that and I didn't get it, I learned from that because I would say, well, why? What do I need to do to improve my chances of having this opportunity the next time?
Mhm.
What am I missing? And then you can go fill that gap for yourself.
Mhm.
But if you don't ask, you're never going to find out.
I love that advice, and I think it's so true. And I think particularly for women, there's all sorts of data around eh, ju- just exactly that. That typically women wait to be recognized versus promoting themselves.
Mhm.
And by promoting, obviously, you can't give yourself a job promotion, but
Right.
by verbally articulating and demonstrating and saying, "Hey, I've made these contributions," that historically um, or the majority of women will wait and expect to be recognized. To your exact point, well, they'll see what I've done and then they'll promote me.
Yeah.
So I think
And
that's
sometimes, I
important.
mean, you have to just say things with confidence.
Mhm. Yep.
And, like it's like we all struggle with imposter syndrome and, kind of that like self doubt that tends to creep in. But, in a lot of ways, it's like fake it till you make it. Like say things, say what you believe. Yes, you might have imperfect information. Yes, you might be wrong, but you're going to learn from
Mhm.
that, like be willing to be challenged, be willing to um receive criticism and have open discussions. It's the only way you're going to get better.
Love it. So true. It's so true. You mentioned a little bit earlier about your son. Talk a little bit about your experience, if you will, just with I don't love the phrase like work life balance. So I'll say work life integration. But
Mhm.
talk a little bit about that. Like, I'm not saying that you have it, but like mom guilt is a real thing.
Mhm.
Just talk a little bit about how you integrate the two. Has that been challenging for you at times? You feel like you got a handle on it, and if so, tell the rest of us how to do it. But just yeah, any perspective on that?
Oh gosh, I mean, I think it's something that, everybody tries to figure out every day, right? I'm lucky. I work from home, so I'm here when my son leaves for school. I'm here when he comes home. He usually if I'm not like in a meeting actually like doing something when he comes home, we can chit chat for like a few minutes about how his day was or whatever, and then I'm not fighting traffic to come home and getting home late or whatever. So I think that helps a lot. I know that that's not realistic for a lot of people, so I consider myself lucky in that regard. But, I mean, I definitely get sucked into work. Sometimes it has to be a focus that has to sort of overshadow everything else. Um, but, I don't know that I've ever really been a person who prioritized work at the expense of my life. Like I think that early on, like I really wanted to have two parts of my life, and so, I like that you use the phrase integration. I think that that is kind of how it goes because, you know, I'm lucky, like in my role now as a consultant, like I can build my schedule around things that my family or my son or my friends or whatever need from me or that I want to give for them. And then I can, you know, take time from other parts to make up for that. Like if I need to go to a school thing or I have a friend who's sick or my husband needs me to do something for him or whatever, like I can just sort of work all around that. But then that might mean that like, I'm sitting on the couch like and everybody else is kind of watching a movie and I'm like maybe wrapping up a few emails or or doing things like that. So I think you just have to I think it goes back a little bit to the idea of like, you don't have to play the same game as everybody else, right?
Mhm.
You're building a business or you're building your career for the life that you want, right? And not everybody uses the same measuring stick when they're evaluating what success means for them. Some people are like, well, if I'm not making like this much money or money's the only thing or, title or like, I don't know what the word is, prestige
Mhm.
is the thing that I want to be measured against. You have to kind of pick what your thing is, and for me, I want to have a life and a career that work together and that I am allowed to be like a happy, healthy person without struggling towards all of these other, struggling to achieve all of these other things. I mean, yes, would it be great to be like a super prestigious, like thought leader or whatever?
Mhm.
Yeah, I'm not going to say no. Would it be great to make a ton more money? I mean, I don't think anybody's going to say no to that. But if it means that I have to sacrifice some of these other things, and if it means that I have to sacrifice my own integrity, then I'm not going to do it.
Mhm. Love that. I love that. That is, and I feel like that's sometimes like a balance that, and when I say a balance, I mean an internal one of, or maybe like a recognition that we just need to have. It's like, it's okay. It's like to not, it doesn't, you don't have to have like this level of monetary business success to have a complete life.
Mhm.
It's just the that all of these parts of us make a full life. So,
Mhm.
um,
Exactly.
I have one more question for you, and then we'll get to rapid fire, which is unrelated to anything that we talked about. But before I get to my last question, um, I say that, then I have two more. Is there anything that you want to talk about that or cover or message that you want to get out there that we haven't yet talked about? Just want to give you the floor to do that.
Yeah, I mean, like I think I have to do some shameless promotion of my
Absolutely.
own services, of course, right? Like, I mean, if there are any, small businesses, consultants, agencies out there who need some support in really figuring out why their marketing is not working or how did they get to the next level, like usually it's a positioning and a messaging situation that we can figure out. And that's the work that I do. So I would certainly welcome anyone to reach out to me for that. Um, but yeah, I would say too, like, if you're doing your own marketing, like don't get so hung up on the tactics. Really think about the strategy and really focus. Like the most important thing that you need to understand is your own audience.
Mhm. What's the best way to get in touch with you if people are interested in talking with you or learning more about some services that you offer? What's the best way to get
Yeah.
in touch?
So you can find me on LinkedIn, Katie Turner, Kate Turner Marketing. You can also find me at my website is kateturnermarketing.com. And yeah, those are probably the two easiest ways to get in touch with me.
Perfect. And we will link those up in the show notes. So for the audience, check out the show notes for that info. Last question, Katie, before we get to rapid fire. Um, how do you define success?
I mean, I think it's happiness, right? Like it's just happiness and ease.
Love
You
it.
know, I mean, if I can have a life where I don't have to be stressed about money, I don't have to worry. I have like everything that I need to survive and thrive, and that I can make purchase decisions without having to like worry about like pinching, like checking the bank account first. Like that I think is fundamental, right? Like that's the first step. But I think the other piece of it is just, do I wake up in the morning? Am I excited about the work that I'm going to do with my clients? Do I enjoy my days? Generally, yes, there are good days and bad days and, things that happen, but like in a general sense, am I like joyful about the thing that I'm doing? And do I feel like I'm making an impact for people? That's always been an important part for me. Like if you look at my whole career trajectory, it's been with mission driven, nonprofit, higher education organizations that are doing good work. And now, I'm working with all kinds of different small business owners and clients of all, in all different stages of their own business growth. And I feel like I'm making an impact for them. I'm helping them do the work that they do, to succeed and to feel confident and successful in their own business.
Mm-hmm. I love that. And I think about that a lot is like the ripple effect of what any of us do, right? And like you're impacting your customers, which then are affecting their businesses and then their employees. And it just, goes out. So I think that's a beautiful way how you summed it up. Moving to rapid fire. These are like maybe 5 or 6 questions, totally unrelated to what we talked about. Just first thing that comes to mind. So, brick or stone?
Stone.
Sun or moon?
Sun.
Spring or fall?
Spring.
Eat in or dine out?
Eat in.
Sing or dance?
Dance.
And last one, astronaut or deep sea diver?
Astronaut.
All right. I like it. Katie, thank you so.
Do I get like results? Like this is like the personality quiz, and now I'm,
Right. You're off the charts, or you're
right.
No, it's funny though, that astronaut deep sea diver one is the one that most people, you were like very quick with it, which is great, very decisive. Most people like really, they're like, you can visually see them be like, oh, geez,
yeah,
both sound terrible. Neither one.
Yeah. Yeah, they both have their downsides, but
yeah. Well, Katie, thank you so much. I really enjoyed our conversation. I feel like the information that you shared, not only on your experience, but also just marketing it as a whole is great. And for any small businesses out there, get in touch with Katie. I'm sure she's also happy to just learn about your business and understand holes and just offer some advice and some guidance. And I feel like some of the best business relationships start with just reaching out and educating ourselves on, hey, this is my business problem. How can you help me? Right?
Yeah,
so,
absolutely.
Is there when you say small businesses, is there a revenue size or anything that like people should think of? I'm too big, I'm too small. Or
yeah, I mean, I don't like pegging it necessarily to revenue. I mean, I will say that most of the clients that I work with are, like somewhere like less than $1 million up to maybe $2 to $3 million in total revenue. So definitely on the smaller side there. But I have worked with businesses who have $10 million of revenue and have the same problems that, very small business owners do. So it's really about, do you need help translating what you do into language that your buyers can actually understand? That's the biggest problem that I solve.
Gotcha. And anybody, and I know this, I'm in like a women's entrepreneur group and just being an entrepreneur myself, I feel like marketing, the sooner that you can get that right, it's just builds such an important foundation to be able to build upon. So just
absolutely.
Yeah.
It's like the best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago and the second best time is today. The same applies to marketing, right? Yeah. And you don't need to wait until you have a huge budget to spend money on marketing, because the most important part of marketing is the strategy part. And that is the work that I do. And it does not require you to spend money on, anything outside of just that work, right? Get that right. And then everything else that you do organically, like, your overall communication and your overall confidence in how you talk about your business is going to transform. And that is going to help you start to grow.
So entrepreneurs out there, business owners, get in touch with Katie, educate yourselves, learn a little bit more. I mentioned her websites earlier, and we will link them up in the show notes. And Katie, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, thank you for having me. This was great.
Absolutely. And to the listeners out there, thank you. And we will see you next time on the Lauren Asghari podcast, How'd Her Career Get There?
Let's talk a bunch of different topics.
How'd her career get there?
This is a podcast with Lauren Asghari.